Welcome to the Potterblog site, December 19th, 2013. Well, just in time for forced H7N9 vaccinations, the shell game on what is to blame for vaccine-induced narcolepsy is flip-flopped again. We've seen some trend of this, but there was a new article out today in Science Daily. H7N9 triggered narcolepsy may stem from molecular mimicry. Let's get into this in just a little bit of detail. We've blogged about this. And basically what's going on is just in time to reduce public resistance to narcoleptically tied adjuvant-laced flu vaccines, they flip-flopped on what's causing narcolepsy again. Previously, the blame was placed on adjuvants used in H1N1 vaccines. Then they shifted the blame to adjuvants specifically made in Germany by GSK, and supposedly by some witchcraft, the same adjuvants made by GSK in Canada became safe. Now that gambit has fallen apart because now the Canadian version too has been shown to be tied to narcolepsy. That only leaves one thing left to blame, and that's to blame the H1N1 virus itself. And that's what's happening now. Now, what makes this suspicious to us, it's not that there's multiple theories on the cause of it. It makes sense there would be multiple theories. What makes this suspicious to us is that this blame game is flip-flopping all the time as a means to an end to support whatever the government needs the public to do vaccination-wise in that time frame. So whatever theory stands behind the government's needs, that theory is the one that gets public limelight. Now let me show you how this has played out so far in this narcoleptic shell game. Now first, the government wanted people to take the H1N1 swine flu vaccine. Now, the solution to this was to blame narcolepsy on adjuvants, as adjuvants have never been approved in the U.S. for use in flu vaccines. As a result, Americans took the H1N1 vaccine because they supposedly didn't have to worry about getting narcolepsy like the Europeans were, because we didn't use those nasty adjuvants. So now, phase 2. The government finds out that it needs to use adjuvants in the H7N9 vaccine. Solution: approve the use of Canadian adjuvants and place the blame on adjuvants made in Germany, even though they're made by the same company. The result was we added Canadian adjuvants to the H7N9 vaccine. 3. Well, now the Canadians have been shown to come down with narcolepsy because of this H1N1 adjuvant-laced vaccine. So the solution: blame the H1N1 virus instead of the adjuvant. The result? Well, people can't untake the H1N1 vaccine that they've already taken previously, so no loss there. And now they have no longer a reason to fear taking the H7N9 vaccine, because those adjuvants aren't dangerous after all. Instead, it's the H1N1 virus and vaccine itself that the government said was safe that turned out to be dangerous. So the shell game on what gets published is constantly shifting in favor of whatever the government's trying to lead the people to do. So you may ask, well, what is the government's need to use adjuvants in the H7N9 vaccine? Well, it's primarily based on manufacturing, logistics, and economics. Adjuvants work by revving up your immune system. It's like adding nitrous oxide to a car engine. The engine revs like crazy, and engine damage occurs easily. Now, adding adjuvants to a vaccine allows the government to use less vaccine, and that saves time and money. Now, of course, revving up the immune system is the last thing you'd want to do when you face the risk of a potential immune disorder like narcolepsy. So to tie it back to this nitrous allegory, narcolepsy is one of the forms of engine damage a person's body faces when they rev the immune system with adjuvants. So it comes down to a question of liberty. Choosing whether or not to take a vaccine is a personal matter of risk mitigation. You look out and you say, well, what are the risks of me coming down with this illness? If I do come down with this illness, what is the worst case scenario as a result of that, and what's the likelihood of that? Versus, what is the risk from the vaccine? And what's the worst case from a vaccine injury? So, making an informed risk mitigation decision requires good information. Yet it seems information is promulgated is primarily that which supports the current government's position as a means to an end. Now there's another thing to consider. When weighing the available public information, it's important to remember that public health is about the herd and not the individual cow. The farmer is willing to sacrifice individual members of the herd for the perceived greater good of the herd. Now there's an exception to the rule, and that is the prize heifer. The prize heifer gets special treatment and dispensations. Of course, odds are that you are not a prize heifer in the government's eye. And when it comes to public health, the overriding thing to remember is that the government's position is that the Bill of Rights is void where prohibited by public health law. So the question comes down to this. Are you livestock, prized heifer or not, owned by the government's public health authorities, or do you own yourself?